Very much, everybody. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and you forget how much you enjoy each other's company for the most part. Sorry. Before beginning with our official agenda today, I'd just like to call our chair, Jason Sheldon, to the stage and share some rather sad news. But Jason?
Thank you, Dave. Obviously, don't want to share sad news, but last night we lost a pioneer of the industry. Glenn Schnarr passed away peacefully in Florida. Glenn was a friend, a colleague, and truly a member of our industry for way too many years. So our thoughts and prayers are with Glenn's family, and perhaps we could raise a glass for Glenn. He will be missed. To Glenn, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Obviously a difficult way to start, but it reminds you about what makes this industry as special as it is, which is the people and the families that comprise it. So thank you. As I said, it's great to be here. I also want to welcome those that are joining us online and watching our live stream sponsored by Canada Brick and the Toronto Star. Thank you very much for your support and welcome. Thank you for being here. This meeting, which we held last time 2 years ago, unbelievably, is a time to acknowledge and celebrate the successes that we've had over the last year, pay special tribute to some longtime members, and as well look forward to where we're going in 2022. Before lunch, we do have a few items of business, so I'd invite you, those of you that haven't, to start your salads. And I would also like to remind everybody about the health and safety protocols that we have in place. Obviously, maintain physical distance where you're able, and when you're away from your table or your seat, please do wear your face mask. We are very pleased to be here in Vaughan today. And so to start our agenda, I would like to offer a short video greeting from His Worship, Mayor Maurizio Bevilacqua. A small story before we run the video. Last time we were together, I mispronounced Maurizio's name as Mario, so now I've corrected it.
I'm pleased to extend greetings to everyone attending the Building Industry and Land Development 2021 AGM. This is a milestone year for BILD as you mark 100 years as a trusted advocate in the GTA home building, land development, and professional renovation industries. I want to thank each and every one of you, including Minister Steve Clark and BILD President Brian Wilkes, for your valued and meaningful contributions in helping to guide the development and growth of our city. We appreciate your role in positioning Vaughan as a city of choice. Despite the universal challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, Vaughan remains a city in demand. This year alone, we've issued more than $1 billion in building permits, with more than 19,000 companies that employ more than 225,000 people. Vaughan is an economic leader in the GTA, thanks to hardworking, entrepreneurial, and dedicated people like you. Thank you once again, and please accept my best wishes for a successful AGM.
And apparently we're now even. I'll have to remind the mayor of my name. Seriously, I would like to acknowledge some very important partners who are planning to be with us. I hope they were all able to make it. From the City of Vaughan, Councillor Rosanna Di Francesco. Also from the City of Vaughan, Councillor Sandra Young-Racco. From the City of Markham, the Commissioner of Development Services, Arvind Prasad. From the Town of Oakville, His Worship Mayor Rob Burton and Chief of Staff Jorge Gomez. From the Region of York, Chief of Staff Lena Bajoni. From the Town of Georgina, the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, Catherine Stone, and Ryan Cronsbury, the CEO of Georgia. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. I apologize. I'd also like to recognize our partner, Bob Schickendance, who is the president of the Ontario Home Builders Association from Farside Home. A round of applause for our guests, please. Today's event would not have been possible without our sponsors. I'd like to acknowledge our reception sponsors, Citizen & Co., GE Appliances, Enbridge Gas, and PMA Breather Realty Group, and our AGM presenting sponsors, Moan, Austin Birch Marketing, GTSWCA, and MMP. Again, a round of applause for our sponsors, please. If I may, and I will do so again later today, I'd just like to thank our sponsors for standing beside the association over the last 2 years. I know part of the value we offer is allowing you to network by sponsoring events such as these. We are grateful that you have trusted us and allowed us to continue to do the work through the sponsorship you provide and the virtual events. But I will repeat myself later, but I really wanted to acknowledge that off the top. This is our first meeting in person since almost 2 years ago. We, of course, did have the large-scale in-person event to start the return to our platforms of gathering with the 2021 BILD Awards. BILD was the first HBA in Canada and one of the first associations to safely return to in-person events. From an advocacy perspective, over the last year, we focused on 2 key areas. Throughout the first half of the year, as many workplaces were forced to close because of COVID-19, BILD focused our efforts, along with our partners at OHBA, in ensuring that our industry and our suppliers could continue to work. As a result, we are trusted with the responsibility of continuing to work in order to provide housing, to renovate homes, and to provide commercial space to the residents of the GTA. BILD was instrumental in working with the government to ensure that this work was done in a safe and healthy manner, and we balanced the responsibility of providing housing while ensuring we respected the challenge that COVID had brought to us. The work on the pandemic was not only what we worked on from an advocacy perspective. As regions and municipalities in the GTA undertook MCR reviews to implement policies for the new growth plan, BILD has been working with these municipalities to ensure that they respect the land needs assessments that have been provided and designed to determine the type of housing we require. Our mission is to provide appropriate mix of housing for the growth that we're anticipating for the region. Toronto's inclusionary zoning policy was another key focus for the association this year. Toronto was the first out of the gate to introduce inclusionary zoning plans, and we expect many municipalities across the region to follow suit. Through our efforts, we did create some positive change, but as has been well documented, we do have challenges with the City of Toronto's approach to inclusionary zoning. We believe in this tool as a way to provide affordable housing, but it must be done in a partnership model and recognize that providing affordable housing is a societal responsibility, not one that needs to be burdened on new homeowners solely. Over the coming year and months, we will work to refine, if you will, the city's approach and also work with other municipalities as IZ plans are introduced to ensure that they are effective and follow that partnership model. This year, we released 2 third-party studies, one that focused on inclusionary zoning best practices, and the other that delved into the use of government fees, development charges, cash in lieu, and Section 37 charges in 16 GTA municipalities. Some would say shockingly that this study revealed that there's an accumulated reserve of more than $5 billion with a B dollars in these accounts. This study was released last week to help inform the debate of how we can influence housing affordability. And the findings of the report will be an important tool as we work with municipalities as they review their DCs and establish CBCs. As you saw from the video, this year was the 100th anniversary of BILD. Hopefully you all have had an opportunity to proudly wear your lapel pin. To commemorate this special occasion, which very few associations get to celebrate, we worked with the Toronto Star for an 11-week retrospective in both print and online. The focus of this retrospective was the families and companies that have built the GTA. I would like to acknowledge and thank the member companies that sponsored this project and enabled us to reach so many GTA residents and educate them on the benefits of our industry and the uniqueness of this family-run industry as well. Throughout 2021, our association continued to build on its relationships with mayors, regional chairs across the GTA. We will continue this work, and next week, I believe, we're restarting our roundtable with the City of Toronto's chief building official that is addressing key renovation issues as well. These relationships provide a unique platform to provide insights and information to support municipalities and regional governments as they build policies that shape and respond to growth and ensure that we have appropriate housing and commercial space supply. This work is fundamental to what we do, and we at BILD have a philosophy. We don't bring complaints. We don't show up to whine. We show up with solutions, and we show up with facts in order to inform the debate. Because there's one inescapable point. 13.5 million people will call this region home in the next 20 to 30 years, and we don't have enough housing to, sorry, I'm not crying, I'm just drying up. Maybe some should suggest I do cry. Sorry about that. But we need more housing. There's nothing long or short about it. That's the bottom line. Before closing my remarks and recognizing our 25 and 50-year members, I would like to express my appreciation and thanks to several groups. First and foremost, our board. This was the first year that marked a new governance structure for BILD, and we've taken our board from a 42-person group to 16. BILD has gone through some tremendous challenges responding to the pandemic with the cancellation of our home show and other really deep financial hits. The board has guided us to a plan that will secure our future over the long term, and I'm grateful for their expertise, input, advice, and support. I'd also like to thank BILD committees, chapter members, and volunteers for their staff, for their dedication and commitment during this busy year. We are only but a reflection of the members, and we couldn't do our work without you. As I mentioned, our sponsor stood by BILD throughout the last 2 years and continued to provide support despite the change in our promise of providing in-person events. Thank you very much. And to all of you and those online, our BILD members, our goal every day when we show up to work is to ensure we provide a greater ROI than your membership dollars. Please hold us accountable to that promise as we continue to work to strive for excellence. We're already looking forward to next year, and Jason will share some of our plans. We see a busy return to in-person events. Next in February will be our Chairs Dinner. And our advocacy agenda will be a full one, largely focused on provincial and municipal elections and ensuring that we provide the right context and solutions for housing and commercial space supply. Before moving on to the business of our AGM, it is now time in our agenda where we really celebrate some remarkable members who have been with us both for 25 and 50 years. You'll see each of the 25-year members' names on a screen behind us. If you are with us today, please do stand, and I would ask the members to hold their applause till we finish recognizing both our 25-year members from 2020 and this year. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join in congratulating the following BILD 25-year members for 2020. Valleymore Building Corporation, Four Valleys Excavating and Grading, Geranium, Marshall Homes Corporation,
Thank you very much to the 25-year members. From this perspective that I have, there's very few associations that can make the claim that we just did for the support for those companies over 25 years. It's always humbling when you realize that you also have one member that has been with the association for 50 years. I've had the pleasure of celebrating a few 50-year members, and today I would like to recognize Applewood Air Conditioning Limited, who have been with the association for 50 years. Thank you very much, Applewood. Okay, we're now getting to the riveting stuff. It's our AGM. I will now call officially at 12:29 the 2021 Annual General Meeting to order. This meeting is properly constituted, and we have a quorum between the online and in-person attendance, along with 4 proxies that have been entrusted to Chair Jason Sheldon. We just have a couple of order of business, so if you would bear with me. Our first item is a motion to approve the minutes from the 2020 Annual General Meeting. All members have received copies of these minutes by email on December 2nd, 2021. If I could have a mover, thank you, Darren, and a seconder, thank you, Alana. If you could raise your yellow cards if you are in favor of passing the minutes. Any objections? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. I'm also happy in the president of our auditors, MMP, to report that the membership that according to our 2020 audit, our accounts are in good standing. The audit was approved by our board on June 16, 2021, and all members have also received a copy of this audit in that same email on December 2nd. For the next item of business, we must appoint an auditor for 2021. The motion reads that the members present today at our annual general meeting appoint MNP LLP as the 2021 auditors for BILD. I need a mover. Thank you, Cheryl. And a seconder. Thank you, Lior. Once again, all in favor? Any opposed? MNP is reconfirmed as our auditors. Next, I'd like to confirm with our association board of directors and officers for 2022. Pursuant to the governance changes and BILD bylaws, these directors are all completing the second year of a 2-year term, and as such, board elections will not be occurring today, but will take place this time next year. To confirm our board, Alana de Gasperis from TAC Developments, Andrew Duncan from RioCan Real Estate Investment Trust, Hassam Gadaki, our treasurer from Times Group Corporation, Scott McClellan from Plaza Group Investments Limited, Katie Schofield from Great Gulf Homes, who is our vice chair, Jason Sheldon, our chair from Remington Group, Lucy Stocco from Tribute Communities, Jude Tricini from Menkes Developments Limited. Our renovator members are Dwayne Butler from Master Edge Homes, Financial, Michael Begg from BMO Bank of Montreal. Manufacturer supplier representative is Kevin Smith from Panasonic Canada Inc. Service professional is Lear Margulies, who is also the association's secretary from Robbins Appleby. Trade representative is Elliot Muzo from Merrill Contractors. We have 2 ex officio members of the board, Cheryl Shindrick from Geranium, who is our past chair, and Lou Erasm, who is the Renovator Council chair from Inspire Homes. Next year at this time, our nominating committee will present a slate of candidates to fill the vacancy and manage any changes that we have to the board, and that will be done so under the direction of our past chair, Cheryl Shindrick. This concludes the formal business of our annual general meeting. I would now like you to enjoy lunch, and we'll come back with our keynote speaker and chair's remarks a little later on. Enjoy, everybody. Thank you very much.
On a spring day, April 5th in 1921, 5 home builders from the city of Toronto assembled at 26 Adelaide Street West. They gathered with a very specific purpose: to create an industry association for Toronto's home builders. The association's goal: to provide an industry perspective to development policy for the region. Its members could share best building practices, establish standards, and enhance their trade. While the association began their work on public policy files, one of the first orders of business was to raise funds for a community tea in High Park for the association and their families, held in July of 1926. This would be the first of many social gatherings, galas, and functions for the association. The 1920s saw a huge increase in residential construction in Toronto. In those days, builders would construct a limited number of unique homes every year, often according to client specifications. In 1922 to 1923, one of the first key pieces of public policy the association provided input to was Bylaw 9868, a precursor to later zoning and city building code requirements. While previous Toronto bylaws around construction dealt mainly with mitigating fire risk, a perennial hazard in pre-20th century towns and cities, Bylaw 9868 sought to regulate the erection and provide for the safety of buildings. With amendments, this bylaw served the city through the early 20th century. The 20s was a busy time with a need for infrastructure for the growing city. Roads surveyed, roads paved, traffic lights installed. No longer a colonial city, it embraced everything modern, coming into its own identity.
In the 1930s, the Great Depression brought unemployment and economic hardship to many in Toronto, defining affordability challenges of the day. Yes, Toronto had a more diversified and industrialized economy than other parts of Canada, but it also foreshadowed the housing shortages that would reoccur in the decades to come. The mid and late 30s saw Canada's first 2 pieces of federal housing policy. It was a bid to address housing shortages, housing conditions, and stimulate much-needed employment. Unfortunately, the legislation and programs did not have time to make a real impact before the arrival of the Second World War in 1939. The decade of economic depression and the attendant constraints on housing supply, combined with the home front impacts, manpower and materials shortages during the war, meant that the city's housing inventory was under severe pressure in the 1930s and totally unprepared for the flood of demand that came after the war. It's clear that each decade impacts the next. In the 40s, the large post-World War unmet demand in housing, increases in housing prices, and the boom in home building all trace their origin to the collapse of the New York Stock Exchange in 1929 and the decade of economic depression that followed.
The Second World War was over. Now Toronto turned its attention to the challenges of peace. Yes, Torontonians had lived through 6 years of hardship with patience, strength, and grace, but there was now a chronic housing shortage. Transit was inadequate, and infrastructure had not kept pace. These needs of the 1940s provided the spark for the engine of economic growth and development that is residential and commercial construction. Some important factors would collide and change the region forever. Firstly, the flood of returning war veterans and workers from other countries. They came to a region where the housing stock had stayed mostly stagnant in the Great Depression, and there were massive constraints on materials and the workforce on the home front during the war. There was a rapid evolution in the speed and scale of new home building in the 1940s, which came out of the necessity to build homes quickly for war workers and veterans. The changes are exemplified by the simple economical designs of Victory Housing, built by Wartime Housing Limited, Canada's first federal housing corporation. The expansion of the region's road and highway infrastructure began, including the start of the province's 400 series highways later in this decade, removing the traditional transportation barriers for what would later become the suburbs. Finally, the decade saw the creation in 1946 of the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, today known as the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. It was also an important milestone for the building industry. The Canadian Home Builders Association was founded in 1943. It allowed builders from coast to coast to advocate for the consistent national policies and standards that continue to shape our cities and towns to this day.
Many of the titans of today's residential and commercial building development industry trace their origins to the 1950s. It was a monumental time for the region, with many firsts that would provide the backbone for later development. The ribbons of the 400 series highways expanded, enabling the development of multiple cities and towns of the Greater Toronto Area of the future. The construction of the Gardiner Expressway kicked off in the mid-1950s. Toronto's first subway opened early in the decade, and plans were made immediately to expand the network. The first dedicated zoning bylaws passed in 1952, 53, and 59. They would significantly influence how the city would grow. Toronto became a metropolis out of a federation between the old city of Toronto, the key regions, towns, and villages in the area. The name of BILD's predecessor association mirrored this, becoming the Metropolitan Toronto Home Builders Association. And there were increasing housing starts in this decade, caused by the influx of migrants in Canada's fourth wave of immigration, the post-war baby boom, the increasing shift of population from rural to urban Canada, and finally, the introduction of mortgage loan insurance under the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation in 1952. This virtually doubled the housing levels of the 1930s, foreshadowing another doubling in the 1960s. Overall, the city was building the infrastructure on which greatness and growth would depend. It was a vast network of transit, roads, highways, bridges, and sewers that would keep things moving and eventually lay the foundation for the entire GTA region. Certainly, Toronto and the region were on course to become Canada's economic engine, surpassing their traditional rival of Montreal.
The 1960s was also another period of tremendous growth and development for the region. The City of Toronto saw the opening of the Bloor-Danforth subway, a new city hall, and impressive developments downtown. And in 1968, the registration of its first condominium. The decade also marked an important shift in the pattern of development in the region, the meteoric rise of the suburbs. Suburban development truly boomed. Why? Well, for starters, population increases from the baby boom and immigration, but also the expanding network of roads and highways, and, in 1967, the opening of the GO Transit commuter rail service. The Canadian dream of home ownership now came within reach for virtually everyone, thanks to insurance-backed mortgage loans and new ways of building homes and communities. As Toronto expanded, residential and commercial builders and developers literally built the region as we know it. Much of what they built, including schools, hospitals, infrastructure, workplaces, shops, and entertainment facilities, is still in use today. For local home builders associations, the 1960s hold another important milestone. The Toronto Home Builders Association joined a group of other home builders associations in 1963, establishing the Ontario Home Builders Association, OHBA. Its role, then and now, to focus on provincial legislation, regulations, and policies that impact the residential construction industry and its customers, new home buyers. BILD remains the largest member of the OHBA. Its membership is responsible for more than half of the homes built in Ontario in any given year.
In the 1970s, the foundations of the GTA continued to be laid on a significant scale, most notably the CN Tower, a new symbol of Canadian industry, technology, and engineering, was completed in 1976. It was the world's tallest freestanding structure for 32 years. The regional municipalities of York, Peel, Halton, and Durham were established in this decade. These regional municipal governments would evolve to provide core public services to the smaller municipalities within their boundaries. Several landmark shopping malls opened in the 1970s, changing the retail landscape forever. The Eaton Centre, for example, became a downtown magnet upon opening in 1977. Today, it's still North America's busiest shopping mall by far. The region was definitely on the move. Expanding transportation infrastructure knit the GTA together. GO Transit introduced the GO Bus, 2 additional GO train lines, and the iconic double-decker rail cars. Early in the 70s, Highway 427 was designated, and the Highway 400 expansion began around the same time. Later, Highway 404 was added, and construction began on Highway 403 through Mississauga. In Toronto, the Yonge subway line was extended to Finch, and the Spadina subway line was added. This type of concentrated investment in public infrastructure has not been seen since. By the end of the 70s, the population of the region had grown to just over 3 million people, with more than 1 million living in the cities and towns surrounding the city of Toronto. It had taken nearly 150 years from founding of Toronto in 1834 for the population to reach this level. It will take just shy of 40 years to reach today's population, which is more than double. The 2010s were the decade when housing supply again became a major issue in the GTA, but it also saw a shift to improve the region's transit. The housing supply shortage is driven today by three main factors. The first is the growth plan, with its directive to build denser communities within existing municipal boundaries. This has led to a land supply crunch that can only be alleviated with the expansion of municipal boundaries. The second, the complexity of the municipal approval process for new homes and new communities. It now takes 10 years or more for a typical high-rise project in the GTA, and 11 for a typical low-rise, due in part for the necessary approvals, delaying the addition of new housing supply to the market. Lastly, given that the big days of infrastructure spending were in the 50s through the end of the 70s, existing infrastructure is not able to support growth, where the provincial growth plan would like growth to occur. This limits the ability to add new housing, and when new infrastructure is added, it comes too slowly, causing delays. The housing supply problem, combined with high demand, spiked GTA housing prices in the 2010s, doubling and sometimes tripling them. In addition, politically motivated demand-side pressures, such as the stress test and foreign buyer sales taxes, only masked the housing market's structural imbalance. In 2018, the provincial government recognized that the problem is on the supply side and implemented its Housing Supply Action Plan to start to bring more balance to the market. The plan requires municipalities to adequately plan for a near doubling of the population by 2051. Even though the housing crisis deepened in this decade, there were positive moves. Mid-2010s, new corporate headquarters, particularly banks, relocated as fast as new towers are constructed south of Front Street. They now occupy considerable office space in the South Core, on what was once the eastern part of the railway lands. By 2015, this financial district spanned 5 million square feet of office space. Transit took off across the GTA in the 2010s, with work resuming on the Shepherd, Eglinton, and Finch LRT lines, and connecting transit hubs, Union Station and Toronto Pearson International Airport, with the Union Pearson Express in 2015. This new plan, cross-regional transportation plan, called the Big Move, has a massive $11.5 billion, introduced in 2008 and adopted by Metrolinx. BILD, having brought together planners, developers, and builders under its banner in 2007, took on an increasing role in provincial advocacy, recognizing that the future of the GTA is shaped by both provincial and municipal policy. Today, BILD has more than 1,300 member companies and is one of the largest associations of its kind in North America.
For the last 100 years, the cities and towns of the GTA have been a beacon welcoming new Canadians from all over the world. In fact, the GTA is one of the fastest-growing urban areas in North America. From 1920 to 1950, the population doubled, then doubled again by the start of the 1990s, and then again to today, bringing the total to nearly 7 million people. Development has provided housing, employment spaces, schools, hospitals, and all the recreation amenities we enjoy. The GTA generates 20% of Canada's GDP and 50% of Ontario's GDP. Our quality of life and economic strength are rooted in our ability to attract and retain highly educated and skilled workers and provide them with desirable places to live, work, and play. However, in the last 20 years, building more homes and workspaces has been more restricted, costly, and time-consuming than ever, as municipalities bow to local pressures that resist development. The current provincial government has brought in welcome changes with its Housing Supply Action Plan, but it is up to the municipalities to meet the new requirements. With more than 4 million more new residents expected by 2051, now is the time to ask ourselves what type of future we want. Now is the time to have a serious, honest, open, and factual dialogue about the challenges and realities of accommodating projected population growth. Along with all municipal, provincial, and federal partners, BILD and its members look forward to meeting the housing challenge, finding innovations to its solution, and creating a better GTA together.
Welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. And as we bring to the final two components of our AGM, but before beginning, we're very honored to have Brendan Applewood with us today. Brendan is the grandson of the founder of Applewood Air Conditioning, and I'd like to call Brendan on stage as our 50-year member for a photo with our chair and myself. Please join us. Very much for your support and your commitment to the association. Brendan was telling me during lunch that they founded the company and a year later joined BILD, or I probably was Toronto Home Builders at the time. So thank you for your ongoing support. Another minor change to our agenda. We've lost another icon of our industry over the weekend that we were just made aware of. So if I could invite Leo Margulies from Robbins Appleby to share some other news, please.
Don't usually do this. In fact, I've sort of never done this, but I'm sure many of you might be aware, and some of you may not be aware, that Sandy Hostetter, the founder and patriarch of the Hostetter family, passed away this past weekend. His family is sitting Shiva until, I believe, Sunday. And and on behalf of BILD and all the members, I wanted to extend our collective condolences to the Hostetter family, and to praise them for the amazing work that they've done along with all our other icons. And so if you want to raise your glass to the memory of Sandy, I think that would be appropriate. Sandy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Leor. As you heard, 2021 was a really busy and important year for BILD and its membership. It is now time, as I mentioned, to shift gears and look forward at the issues and planned initiatives as we enter our 101st year in 2022. We do have a special guest from the membership, and it's now my great pleasure to invite BILD's chair, Jason Sheldon, to introduce our special guest speaker. Jason?
Thank you, Dave. It's my great pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The Minister has house duty today at Queen's Park and therefore will be joining us virtually. Minister Clark has an extraordinary biography, and I could spend the rest of my time at this podium going through it. But what I would like to do is highlight the incredible work Minister Clark and his team are doing to address the primary issue we all face across this region: the need for housing supply, housing choice, and how to address a housing affordability crisis. The need for housing supply and choice has never been higher. This is the best place to live and work, but demand has drastically outpaced supply, and all cohorts are struggling to find homes they can afford. Within 1 year of the 2018 election, we saw Minister Clark's office introduce the Housing Supply Action Plan, the More Homes, More Choice Act. The underpinnings of the act is the belief that increasing housing supply and housing choice will help every person by making housing more affordable. How is Minister Clark and his team doing this? Extending the growth plan horizon to 2051, allowing for DCs to be deferred to enable more rental and affordable housing projects, requiring land needs assessment and market-based housing study as part of municipal comprehensive reviews, confirming and reconfirming that municipal boundary expansions are key to supporting much-needed housing supply and jobs, reshaping how development can occur around transit stations, the use of MZOs, supporting to keep our industry open and working during the unprecedented times over the past 18 months, providing forums for discussion on how to reduce red tape and approval timelines for new construction and new home renovations, to name a few. Minister Clark, on behalf of BILD, our incredible members, and our esteemed audience here today, thank you for the work you have done, and we know you're only getting started. Welcome to our 2021 AGM.
Jason, for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon for your AGM and to speak to you in what is such a special year for BILD. For 100 years, BILD has been a vocal advocate for the building and development industry, not just in Toronto, but throughout the GTA. Your members have helped lay the foundation for the vibrant, thriving region, which over 7 million Ontarians now call home. BILD has provided critical leadership to its members and to the province through both prosperous and challenging times. Our government values your leadership and input over the past few years, which has proven to be some of the most challenging in a century. For that, I thank you. I am pleased to celebrate this important milestone with you. As your members very well know, Ontario has a housing crisis, and nowhere is that clearer than in the GTA. Young families, seniors, and all hardworking Ontarians are desperate for housing that meets their unique needs and their budget. A severe shortage of housing supply is driving rental housing and affordable home ownership even further out of reach. Our government's housing policies are working to make housing more affordable by increasing supply of the full range of housing options. In 2020, the year after our Housing Supply Action Plan was implemented, More Homes, More Choice, Ontario had over 81,000 new housing starts, the most in the last decade. And in 2020, we had almost 11,000 new rental starts, the most since 1992. This growth shows progress, but the important thing is not the amount of homes or rental units that our government is helping to create. It's the hundreds of thousands of Ontarians who can now find a place to call home, a home that meets their unique needs and their budget. But despite this progress, housing prices are still increasing and are out of reach for too many Ontarians and their families. As Ontario has grown over the past decade, demand has drastically outpaced supply. Ontarians and our municipal partners tell us it takes too long to build homes, especially missing middle homes in existing neighborhoods. We know that there are delays caused by duplication and red tape that are obstructing new homes from being built, which is shutting out Ontarians and their families from realizing their dream of affordable home ownership. That's why next week, Premier Ford and I are hosting a Provincial Municipal Housing Summit on December 16th. We've invited Ontario big city mayors, regional chairs, to come together with the province to look at what's working and to discuss other opportunities for us to collaborate on building more homes to make housing more affordable for hardworking Ontarians. So what will the summit focus on? It'll focus on ways to share data and increase efficiency in planning and approvals for housing, the importance of using existing planning and other tools, and how can we work alongside one another to increase the supply of housing. Our goal is to understand the obstacles we face and what more can be done at the municipal level, as well as together with our government. So by the end of the summit, we want everyone to leave with an understanding of what more can be done to tackle the issue of housing affordability and emerge with a renewed public commitment to work together on actionable solutions. Leading up to the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference, we will be hosting a special session in January with Roma members to discuss the issue of housing affordability with Ontario's rural municipalities and the unique challenges and opportunities that they're facing. Our government continues to identify further opportunities to make housing more affordable. And that's one of the reasons why we've created a housing affordability task force. As all of you know, earlier this week, I announced the members of that task force. And the task force is so important. It includes Jake Lawrence as chair and David Wilkes as one of our members. The task force will provide our government with expert advice and recommendations, and will share a public report in early 2022, identifying more opportunities to get shovels in the ground faster and make housing more affordable for all hardworking Ontarians. We continue to work side by side with our municipal partners to make it easier for Ontarians and their families to find a home that's right for them. This includes helping municipalities plan for growth by updating their official plans to ensure our communities are able to accommodate the population growth that we all know is coming. By updating their official plans to conform with a place to grow, municipalities are able to align infrastructure planning with their projections for residential areas and ensure these sites will have access to critical services and key resources that people need, like water, sewers, and electricity. The faster official plans are completed, the faster we can start building much needed housing and create more jobs for Ontarians. To support this work in the Greater Golden Horseshoe, we've updated the population and employment forecasts to help municipalities manage their growth and plan for the right amount of land for housing. Using a land needs assessment, we're taking a market-based approach for planning for growth across the province by helping municipalities find the right balance of housing, community facilities, and businesses. But I think you realize our work is far from being done. People want more opportunities to live closer to where they work. We're making it easier to place new homes, including affordable homes, and jobs close to transit stations all across the GTA. We're doing more to plan for transit-oriented communities and streamlining approvals for new residential projects around major transit station areas. I'm proud that our government is providing leadership to build affordable housing and transit-oriented communities. I look forward to continuing to work with our municipal partners to ensure their residents can access the housing and transit both they need and that they deserve. So I'll close by saying that we're proud to support communities across Ontario and work with our municipal partners to increase housing supply through innovation and collaboration. And as minister, addressing housing affordability remains my top priority. That's why we will continue to collaborate with all parties, including BILD, as we work together to address the housing crisis. Thank you so much, everyone. And once again, congratulations on 100 years of helping to build on the greatest regions in the world that we call home. All the best.
Thank you to Minister Clark. I know he sends his regrets that he couldn't be here today. As we close out 2021, my first year as the chair of the BILD board, I would like to thank the board of directors, the chapters and chapter chairs, committee chairs, and the numerous volunteers who dedicate their time, experience, and expertise to the association. A heartfelt thank you to you all. We could not do this without you. As we enter the last year of BILD's 4-year strategic plan, I would like to take a few minutes to outline our direction and key initiatives for 2022. In June and October next year, we head to the polls twice, first for the provincial election and then for the municipal election. While our industry and BILD have been successful in defining the narrative around housing supply, choice, and affordability in the region, the upcoming elections, and specifically the makeup of the municipal councils and provincial government for the next 4-year term, will be crucial to achieving meaningful and lasting change. As such, BILD will be running a comprehensive housing and employment space supply campaign through October 2022. This will educate and support the policies that will be critical in the election. The campaign is called We Live Here, and it will roll out initially in 4 phases, exploring the relationship between housing and employment space supply, quality of life, the natural environment and green spaces, and ultimately the health of our society. From a policy perspective, BILD will focus on definitional policies and big ticket items such as inclusionary zoning, DC and CBC reviews, municipal comprehensive reviews that will provide the framework for land use planning and costs across the region for decades to come. Much work was done on this in 2021, but the work is not complete, and as such, bringing this home will be crucial for new home buyers, home renovations, competitive shovel-ready employment lands, and for our industry overall next year. At the end of the first quarter, we will be relaunching BILD's website as well as the National Renomark website on our new platform. This will be with increased functionality and look, better search and navigation tools, and in general, an overall better user experience. Our objective is to make the BILD website the go-to site for industry information in the GTA and to make the Renomark website a leading destination site for consumers looking to do a renovation or to find a renovator GC. This work was kicked off last year, and I know that once we launch, the wait will be worth it. Next year is the last year of BILD's four-year strategic plan, and as a result, it's time to develop one for the 2023-2027 horizon. In doing that, the BILD board, the advisory board committee, the principals committee, and all of the operational committees of the board will be involved in a process to review the performance of the association in comparison to the last plan. This will then help shape a new vision and plan to be implemented under the incoming chair. On October 7th, our annual BILD Awards marked a return to in-person events, and we are here again today in person. We are looking to 2022 with hope and optimism. With that, we are already planning for and striving to deliver in-person opportunities for learning and networking with the parameters set by area municipalities and provincial government. And how does all this happen? I would certainly be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to the BILD team who have contributed to our many accomplishments, particularly in advocacy, public education, media uptake of our messaging, and running events and education sessions in a most challenging environment. The BILD team is here today, and I would like to give them a big thank you for an unbelievable year. 2021 has been a busy year for BILD, and as chair, I am proud of what we've accomplished. As we close out the year with great momentum, 2022 looks very promising for our association and members, and I look forward to continuing to build on the open dialogue, transparency, and zero surprises we have with our municipal, regional, and provincial partners to deliver the housing supply, housing choice, and jobs that make this the best place to live and work. Thank you for your support. Happy and healthy holidays to you and your families, and I look forward to continuing to lead positive change for our industry. Thank you.
Very much, Jason. It's you're a tremendous chair, and it's an honor for us to serve under your leadership. That concludes the formal aspect of our annual general meeting. Please feel free to share each other's company, and we look forward to seeing you in February at our chair's dinner. Thank you very much.